Giddy up. Game day. Real Kyper and Bourne show. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, and Jake Schultz. We're live on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus. The Toronto Maple Leafs go into Raleigh, take on the Carolina Hurricanes. See if we can extend that winning streak, JB, to 6 games.
Seems unlikely at the start of the season that they were going to be threatening for the conference lead here halfway through, didn't it? But boy, good start. Feeling good about things right now.
Yeah. I probably was a little wrong on feeling like it would take them maybe 41 games to be accustomed to this new straight line, at times maybe boring system for many from the Craig Berube and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we have seen some small snippets of adjustments.
They lost that 3 in a row, and it was ugly.
Was it ugly for 3 games?
For a minute.
Anything's ugly for 3 games here.
Is that Columbus, then to the Blues, maybe on home ice, and then somebody?
You have a weird hockey memory. I'm learning this more about you recently.
Yeah, I remember the things I care about. I don't remember my email password or anything like that, but I remember the things I care about.
But not enough to derail a legitimate shot at not only winning the Atlantic Division, but possibly a President's Trophy.
That's the new goal. I will say, too, if you remember earlier in the season, there was long stretches due to injury where you had Grabenkin, Steves, Nylander, Holmberg.
Yeah.
You know, you had a really thin lineup for a while. So fully healthy here. I know a lot of the underlying numbers, some of the analytical people are not as in love with the Leafs, but they haven't really had their team until the last couple games. So here's to hoping.
Well, McCabe's out. That's a significant one.
Right.
So, but not a multiple scenario here, which is helpful in itself.
But if you were to rank the guys that they would be most hurt by not having, McCabe's up there pretty high.
Yeah, he's
Matthews Marner.
really gone to another level in terms of the dependency of him and his game. And it's not on the score sheet, but it's a lot of the other stuff on and off the ice. I've really been impressed with his development as a significant face and leader of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go any further, I just want to do some housekeeping here.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Produce.
Before we go any further, producing. This is something that Kyper's been pushing for multiple years. He's always wanted to do this. Much like Blair and Barker with the back leg line, we have created the Leafs line. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you will call in a number here, and that if you're listening, if you have a pen and paper or whatever you're driving, just get the podcast app or don't text this while you're driving or anything. The number is 416-413-4141. 416-413-4141. If you call that number, you'll hear my horrible voice telling you to leave a message. And you can leave a message on the Leaf line. And if it's any good, if it's, a compelling take,
provoking,
whatever it is, you leave it. I'm going to be pouring through these. And if we have enough, we are going to do the Leaf line tomorrow on the Leaf Hour.
I'm curious to know what percentage of them you'll find usable.
Listen.
If it's 10%, I love the idea that you have to listen to.
I've been screening, that's at the core of my job. I've been screening calls on this station for 10 years.
Yeah, but not
I know
for
what
us.
This is. Yeah,
for
but
bad shows.
Buddy, I know what makes a good
show.
I know what makes a good call.
This is the first time you've been involved in a good show. The rest of them have sucked.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I used to do a great job on Saturday mornings with Rob Wong.
Yeah, but
We used
nobody
to
knew
crush
about it.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
Nobody
the
knew
truckers
about it.
did.
Okay.
The truckers did.
All right. All kidding aside,
Yes.
I am trusting you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought for sure, like we'd all sit and go, that one, not. But he doesn't want that.
No.
He wants to pick it himself and then kind of surprise us like a brick over the head.
So, but I mean, to be in fairness as well, when we started doing this show, I would cut the clips of Sheldon Keefe, and we would sit there together. And I would try to keep your attention for 5 seconds to play the clips, Kyper.
We learned that is not an attainable feat.
I'm not going to sit there and try to get you to listen to these callers. I'm just going to pick them, and we're going to play them.
Kyper, did you like that clip?
What? Clip?
Kyper. Play it again.
No.
I'm sorry.
Anyways.
What's your name again?
We already have like 6 or 7 calls out there from my Twitter that I put out today. So maybe I'll do a little something on TikTok too, because I'm just a TikTok influencer all of a sudden. And away we go. So there you go.
Awesome.
It's the Leaf line. Leave us a voicemail on the Leaf line. And if you're not an idiot, you might get played. So there you go. Anyways.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Okay.
Yes. Any other producing you need to do? You have a new shirt?
Oh, yeah.
Kipper and Bourne shirt?
Like that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Kippy.
Very nice.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, a little late on the Christmas present,
It's all
but
good. I'm good with it.
And I'll just validate that I'm wearing a hat because I was running around today. So that's a new style thing for me,
so
too.
if we were doing this segment today, would someone say, what's with the lines today?
I
or
think
the
that would
defensive
be it.
pairs?
Be like, oh, my God, what have they done now? So the new wrinkle is throwing OEL Myers. Riley Tanev, OEL Myers, Benoit Timmins. Got some fears about OEL Myers. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think those guys have, outside of an injury game with McCabe, I bet those guys haven't played more than 2 minutes of hockey together.
It's a long pair.
Yeah.
Rangy.
So when you look at these new pairs, who is the first one that they're doing this for?
I
That
know
come to
you're
your
asking
mind?
me because you think it's Riley.
I think it's Riley. As my first thought is, got to get Riley going, and why not put him with your best, most dependable 200-foot defenseman in Chris Tanev?
Yeah, and I don't disagree at all. We've kind of been waiting for him to find it with someone and get his game going. I know, he's scored a goal the other day, an OT winner, and he's commented that he thinks he's found his game a little bit.
He's jumping a lot more.
He is. And you think that's by design?
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
And I can live with the odd mistake every once in a while, especially if Tanev's there to kind of back you up.
Mm-hmm.
But he still needs to be a lot more assertive for me.
But this is why they got Tanev.
Yes.
They literally went out and got this guy for this spot.
When we heard that Chris Tanev was coming, it was like the first thought was, okay, now Morgan's got a
set.
defenseman.
And what's funny is I think a lot of us were like, Benoit McCabe are also set. They're an awesome shutdown pair for them. And then it was, OEL Timmins or whatever you ended up doing on the third pair was going to be all right. So it hasn't quite played out that way, but maybe these two with a few more games, they'll find it a little bit. We do have some coach comments on that.
So just as a warning on these clips, as you know, I love background noise on clips. They decided to have the coach's media availability in the lobby of a Broadway play. So there's a lot of people around. So if you can make out these, it's fine.
Hey,
but
isn't it better than, I think it was New Jersey where there was a construction site they were doing in the middle of a...
Held it in an airplane hangar.
it's more of a consistent hum as opposed to when the Leafs do it right below a rickety old fan at the Scotiabank Arena. So anyways, let's get the clip from Berube on the D pairs changing up.
I think a lot of that is their lineup. They're pretty spread out in three lines, So I think we need some balance with our D pairs tonight going against them. Yeah, they got some good skill in each line, with size, Nekus and Shevchikov. Is that how you say it?
Svechnikov.
Yeah.
Close.
Stahl, Aho, so they got it spread out pretty good.
Is that you, Kipper? Are you coaching the team?
Svechnikov,
Hey,
you went full grapes.
if he was on his team, he'd know his name, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Oh, Bieska.
Yeah. Yeah, the best one with grapes was when he called Ponikarovsky Pokahansky. That was my fave. Anyways, yeah.
Hillbilly.
I'm
not going to live that one down.
But still, it is, it's a tough lineup you're facing. That Carolina Hurricanes team is pretty loaded, so whatever adjustments you got to make, you got to make. We also have another one from him. Do you want to weigh in on that before we go back to Brubes?
No, go.
All right, we got clip 3 as well on the lineup changes. Let's do that one.
Just a little more speed tonight. It's going to be a fast game. And I want to, like we talked about it before, where guys sit out, want to get him back in. Wilmer's been out for a bit. He was sick, and then, he's back now. But, I wanted to make that switch.
There you go.
Holmberg in, Robertson in, Reeves out, Pacioretty out.
Pacioretty.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that it's not so much about his performance as we've had multiple quotes from Pacioretty this year where he's like, I didn't get out of bed on Sunday. The one time he said, talking about the physical wear, and another one where he talked about how much of a grind it is to play like this. And they're playing every other night right now. He is a veteran guy who's been injured. So I think it's just like it's a night for him to give someone a rest.
Yeah, I look at that lineup, and I'm looking up and down their lineup there, and it's just a lot of speed and not a ton of guys that you necessarily need the Pacioretty's physicality or Reeves' physicality. Like, you can kind of try to turn this into a track meet. They're not the most physical team, and I think that's been sort of a detriment to them over the years.
Yeah.
So I think you can go with a more speedy lineup as opposed to the one against the Flyers, which is supposed to be more physical. That's what I would look at it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to everyone's conclusion on Pacioretty. I thought he was just awful against Philly.
Did you?
Yeah, well, just slow and tired and worn down for all the reasons that you spoke of.
Yeah.
He's just not effective. So, you know, kind of lends to make me a little concerned on if you're really, truly going to depend on him in April and May to maybe get to a conference final or a Stanley Cup final, if this guy's going to be able to kind of do the things that we've seen out of the gate early here in this season on getting up and down the ice and using his body, and what's going to be left of him in April if he's kind of running out of gas right now going into January.
But, you know, a few games ago, you'd have said he's playing pretty well, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder if you can do this, even in playoffs. Say he's a guy who's not above coming out, you know, for a Holmberg here.
For sure. But like, it's like if can he go from being out of the lineup for game 2 into a top 6 in game 3 and be effective?
It would be a unique, I can't recall too many players doing that, in and out in playoffs, still effective when they're back in. I'm sure people have some examples for us they can give us, but I can't call to mind any.
If you're sticking with Nylander and Tavares as your pairing on your second line, I thought that there's been many moments of brilliance over this season with Tavares, Nylander, and Pacioretty. So if that's a look that you want to go to in a game 2 or a game 3, you know that does work, maybe with a fresher Pacioretty, but I don't think there's a lot of examples of a guy coming into the top 6.
But like, you're going to think once you're getting in the first and second round, you're going to be facing some fast teams, right? So it's like, okay, Tavares and Pacioretty might look good on a November or December, January, but is it going to look fast enough for you in April?
And is Nylander going to have to be like, you know, like, come on, guys. Like, I'm 2 zones ahead already of most people, let alone you two. That is going to be unique. One thing I want to note about this Carolina Hurricanes team. So if you check natural stat trick, Corsi percentage, Corsi for percentage, which is just shot attempts percentage.
Yeah. They got to get a new word so everybody stops hating
I
on
know.
so much because it's such a normal
It's such a
stat.
normal thing. It's like who gets more shots.
Yes.
So the second best team in shot attempts percentage is the Florida Panthers. Third best is Edmonton. They're at 53 and 54%. First best is Carolina at almost 60%. Like, they're 5% better than the next best team. So they control just a massive number of shots. So even though, you know, they're not first in the NHL in goals or anything, they have the puck a ton and they shoot the puck a ton. So it's something tonight where it's like, I'm worried the Leafs are going to be on their heels a bit. I think Pacioretty not being in the lineup, maybe it's a good night for him to not be in.
The one thing that I think can hold a little bit of water for them tonight is even if that does happen, like they're
used to
they're
it.
very seldom out of position. So someone
They win every game getting
the
outshot.
puck may hit
Were they 17 and
Low
7?
danger
3
shots
legs
galore.
before it gets to Wall, and if it does get to Wall, he'll stop it. So even if that trend continues, I think the Leafs have shown an ability to frustrate teams even when the play's a little lopsided for me. It's like, is that a trend that will continue, or will it finally catch up to the Leafs? You know, that's the only thing that you got to ask maybe in the back half of the season. At some point,
it puts a lot of pressure on your goalie.
Puts a lot of pressure on,
You know,
He's-
just no weak ones.
I mean, he's a real stalwart. And he never gets hurt. So
He's
tons
a
of pressure
proven
shouldn't-
commodity
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
is.
Just 70 a year for him.
Makes you a little nervous.
Okay,
That's
so
all.
you mentioned Willie. We haven't really talked about Willie yesterday.
Oh, we've talked about him, just not on the air.
We haven't talked about him, well, yesterday. With the day before we did.
About today, we are.
Yes.
Okay, and What was your comment again on our broadcast?
Take some naps.
12.
Just a dozen game nap.
A dozen game nap. What are we at now? 7 or 8?
We're at 8.
We're at 8.
Yeah.
You got 4 to go here to hold, true.
Well, he starts getting talked about around now, right? Oh, Willie's been not great for a little bit. The coach will call him out around game 10 or so. And then by 11 or 12, Willie gets 2-1, and he's like, oh, that's what it feels like again. And
I started in this business working at City News 680, and I'd worked there for 2 or 3 years as an audio editor and as an editor. I did a bunch of stuff there.
Sound like a 50-year-old today for a young man.
And that's the glasses. It's the glasses. You start to feel the beats when it comes to like covering the news. It's like, oh, it's the St. Patrick's Day parade again. Oh, it's just back to school again. It's like that with the Leafs. It's like, oh, Morgan Riley's struggling. He's the big whipping boy. Oh, Marner needs a new contract. Oh, we're going to give him Nylander's got to get his whack. Here we go. Like, it's very cyclical. And we're at the point of the season now, the dog days, where Willie kind of needs it.
But I will say, Willie it's been a unique year where out of the gates, Berube was like, I need better from you. He was playing him 17, 18 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Willie stood up to him in the media.
Absolutely responded to the criticism.
Yeah, but we also had this Austin Powers it's a power struggle. We had the moment and it felt like Willie won. And they were like, do whatever you want. And no one has said a negative word about him since, and he's been a dog for 2 weeks.
Do you want to go to Craig Berube on Willie?
Longer clip, Keefe-esque clip here from Berube.
And we'll pick up the conversation out of it.
Yeah, I talked to Willie today, and it's just more about, I think sometimes skilled players, scorers, lose their confidence a little bit, and that's what I see right now with Willie, a little bit of a lack of confidence. And for me, it's talking to him about just working his way out of the situation, you can't just relate to, I need a break, work your way out, get your breaks, work for your breaks, That's the biggest thing for me is just getting him back to work a little bit more and being more tenacious on pucks and puck battles and things like that. When he was scoring he was scoring a lot, his puck battles were extremely high, and he's playing with more pace. He's just not playing with the same pace right now.
Is he responsive?
Very responsive, yeah. And we always have good conversations, and it's been really good that way. So, I think I had to do a little bit better job with him too.
A better job on what?
Like a bit better job coaching him, I guess. I had to do a bit better job with him too. Is what he said.
Did you cut the?
No, that was it.
Oh, that was it.
That was it.
Okay.
I had to do a little bit better job with him too.
Better job of him too.
Like I said, they're doing it
at
the Met Gala.
See, you can do all of that, or you can bench him.
No, go to jail if you do that. Apparently, from the coaching staff here, you go to jail.
I know what'll work for sure. Give him the full 2 minutes on the power play. A bunch more.
Try giving him 3 minutes of the 2 somehow.
Keep doing that. That's really working.
Well, it wasn't lost in that maybe longest Craig Berube Kyper's Clipper in history.
I think number one for sure.
Number one for sure. He mentioned work and battle and work and work and work. And there's a lot of sense in what he said that he's not necessarily working hard enough to get out of this.
Yeah.
Just do your job.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, it is a Willie thing. This is the ultimate time where you would kind of expect it, right? Not a contract year. He's been through that. He's back. He had a good start. It's mid-season. This is a Willie time where you kind of got to give him the little cattle prod. And
I'm not a big believer that you've got to shut a guy down. These are stars, and I know that there's a different.
You don't embarrass your guys.
You don't embarrass your guy. It's different, but you can miss a shift or two. I don't know if you have to do the whole kind of Kucherov shutdown for the third period or half a game, or Pasternak, I think, got embarrassed a little bit by Montgomery earlier this year. Did he not?
Yeah,
Draisaitl got benched for 2 shifts.
How'd the Pasternak benching work out?
Well, that's
Coach
just
gone.
it.
Yeah, he literally fired.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't think Berube needs to go down there. But, even if he was to miss a shift or two, it's just
After an obvious event, right?
after an obvious event, you can still get a message across. It gets noticed by the other players on the team, which is never a bad thing. Oh my God, if he benches Willie, what's he going to do to me if I turn the puck over like that? So that's usually how it has that ripple effect on your team.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that. He's just not at that place yet. Berube, and maybe that last comment where he just kind of left it hanging open, like I got to do a better job. Maybe if this trend continues, that maybe that's an option for him.
The other question I have is, do you think that the pace of his line is having an effect on him? Like the fact that Pacioretty and Tavares are older, veteran, not fleet-of-foot guys. Now, when he was successful earlier in the year, was he with Matthews? Would that have been his center?
He played with a lot of kind of.
I just don't
Not
recall
great.
Matthews being in there long enough for anything to be.
He's played a lot with Tavares, but then he
Yeah.
played with like Holmberg and Robertson for a while when they had.
Well,
nobody,
I know
like-
he went 8 or 9 games without having the same center
Yeah.
for 2 straight games.
Yeah.
But like when Marner plays with Tavares for long periods of time, I don't think you think it's the best thing for Marner, right? Like that's not the ideal guy to help him.
I don't know how many games we saw this year of Tavares and Marner. Did we see?
Yeah, we saw it during when
the
guys
nine that he was out,
Yeah.
obviously,
Probably.
Yeah.
early, and they put points up.
Yeah, no, they were
Right?
great. That was Mitch's highlight as a Leaf run,
Yeah.
I would say. Like
Right.
he was really, really good.
So I mean, you mentioned this with Nylander about needing to poke and prod, and I am less like
You
willing.
get Willie now.
I'm less willing to do it now. Like I'm less willing to like deal with it because
Oh, really?
yeah, I mean,
See, I'm much more accepting of it.
I understand it.
Yeah.
But when you get paid like a top winger in the NHL, like, it's the dog days, all this, all it's like that's what the $11.6 million is for, is to motivate you to like I understand it. He was making 6.9. It's like I'm a little bit more willing to give him grace. But when you sign on the top dollar, like he's been no good for quite a while here.
I think there's a sense, and it may come back to even what we witnessed with I want more ice time and then getting the 2 minutes, that there's a, I don't know, an agreement or just an overall kind of, this is the way we're going to handle Willie. It was almost as if it was pre-planned, and that when he did go through stretches, you weren't going to bench him. You weren't going to call him out in the media. You were just going to kind of work your way through it. To Justin's point, an acceptance of we got to work around the edges with this guy.
I mean, I wonder where Willie is talent-wise in the NHL. Like, top 10 talent? Like, is he?
I'd even go lower.
What do you mean?
7,
Yeah.
6.
Like, he,
Like,
at
it's-
his
it's-
best, his edges,
it's
his
scary.
shot, his skating, he is.
The talent is scary.
It is. He might be this generation's Kovalev, where, I mean, you would know much better than I do, and
Yeah, he's got that it factor.
and yeah,
And
it is.
Kovalev's a perfect example. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, like what are you doing? And
Sometimes
you're in your own little world, and
right.
are you playing left wing for us or right wing for them?
Oh, I almost
But-
got coffee out the nose.
But, so
buddy.
my point was, like, if he played to his potential, he's probably paid more like Draisaitl, or like Marner's going to be, or more money. I think part of him getting 11.5 and not more is
People are like driving in a ditch right now going 11.5.
yeah.
And that's a deal for a guy that should be at.
If he's a top 7 skill guy and he's getting paid like a top 40 guy, it's because sometimes he sleeps for a bit.
I think that's
By the
exactly
way,
right.
my argument sucks.
What?
You shouldn't get to be like, oh, he gets to not try because.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to justify it. I'm trying to explain it.
Listen, I got a doctorate in William Nylander, buddy.
Right.
I get it. I understand it, but I'm just less willing to accept it after
But this
the
is your-
contract
but
negotiations.
it's like,
and
okay, let's
paying
let
him
him
at the
accept
peak
it.
of his prowess.
What are you going to do?
Well, I'm not going to do
What's
anything.
Craig Berube going to do? This.
Yeah, whack
Hey.
away.
Whack away.
That's it. That's all you got. You
You
hope it works.
just
But-
log him
but-
until he gets go.
If it continues tonight or bleeds into the weekend, Craig can only go to the well so many times with that before he'll probably feel a little bit of the heat to say, find another way to get
the
Willie
beatings
going.
will continue until morale approves. But you remember Sidney Crosby?
What's that from?
It's like a corny work slogan, basically.
I thought it was a Simpsons thing. Anyway, continue.
But the like Sidney Crosby hadn't scored in 8 or 9 games, and they asked him about it. This is like 3 weeks ago, and they're like, "Yeah, you haven't scored." And he was like, "Well, the good news is every time it gets to a point where you guys bring it up to me, I start scoring again." And he scored that night.
That's
Like this is the Willie cycle. What's today? Today's Thursday, the 9th. They play on Saturday, the 11th as well.
Yeah.
When we do our show on Monday, he'll have scored at least twice.
I agree. Maybe 2 tonight.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, listen, I had him pegged for 2 empty netters against Philly the other night.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the way it works with this guy.
Yes, it does.
And no one will know the difference in April.
Yes. And we're going to go in here and go, oh, Willie, sure. You know,
Great year.
He's on track for. Anyway.
That's funny. Wall again tonight. Looks like.
Yeah, I think
they're doing it. They're giving the Ilya Sorokin treatment every night.
He's doing everything he's supposed to be doing, including
passing a lot of tests here.
Going through a nice stretch here where you need great goaltending. You're waiting for Stolars to get healthy.
Speaking of, do we have anything? Speaking of passing tests, has the body been removed from his knee?
No update.
Yeah.
With a pebble?
Yep.
I might have to text Luke Fox, ask Berube next practice.
Yeah, we need an update on that. I'd say we're due. We have a couple more clips to get to. Just one more on the top line.
Did we play the Hurricanes one?
Yes, because he said the name's wrong.
No, that was about switching up the D pair. We didn't actually play the one on the Hurricanes.
Let's get a little bit of input on the team he's facing tonight.
Yeah, they're always a tough opponent. They've been a real good team for a while now, and you know, they got some great players over there, but it's their pressure they come with. They're a hard-working team. You know, they work as hard as any team in the league, and there's just no room. They don't give you much room. So, you know, you gotta win your battles, and there's a few things that we gotta do to try to create some space out there tonight, and be patient. I think composure and patience and discipline are going to be key tonight in this game.
Yeah, so that's what you mentioned there, right? The composure, patience, because he's like, they're going to fill us in.
Well, and it felt like being on the other side of a Leafs game where he talked about this is what teams used to say with Leafs. They've been a great team for a while now. You got to win your battles against them. They're great, all these sort of like cliches. And it's like, but we need to stay patient. And it's like, God, that's how teams have been beating the Leafs. So they're the anti-Leafs this year.
I'm scared to say this because I said this about LA at the beginning of the season. This team's not as good as I thought they'd be.
Carolina.
Yeah. I'm looking at them, and they're like win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. I don't know if their window is kind of closed. They seem to me the last few years as a team that probably should have won or gone to a final.
Well, they won a round or two every year for like 5 years.
The Panthers swept them in the conference finals when Sam Bennett nailed. Was it Slavin?
Oh,
that was the year they got swept. Yeah, that was kind of felt like it was going to be their year, and it just didn't work out.
They just, I don't know.
They lost Pesci and Shea as a second pair last year.
They're missing something here. They just seem to be like.
It's a goalie. That's what they're missing. They're starting.
Would that be enough to me?
I'm not even sure if they got enough star power, and I like Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. And Svechnikov's got like 13 goals and 29 points in 41 games. That's not a superstar.
And same as Svechnikov.
Those aren't superstar numbers.
And Jarvis, 29 points. It's like Necas has 47 points in 41 games. This is like a crazy career high, and I don't think he started on fire. I think he's cooled off significantly. Yes. So I think they recognize themselves as a team that's like, can you win by committee like the Canes of old, like the 06 Canes? Because they're not going to get dragged the same way a McKinnon has or a McDavid drags team to a final. I do think that they'll try to do something more aggressive, but.
The Aho, did you guys see the Hagel-Aho exchange?
Yeah, what was it again?
Where Hagel was yelling at him. and he just did like the stupid
Oh,
face.
did
and then he
basically
crossed
the
his-
Vern Fiddler
he
on
crossed
BXA
his-
face?
He crossed his eyes, and Hagel just,
He just started laughing.
immediately started laughing because he got him. So like it was just the face is so funny.
Hey,
I like that guy.
I'm writing an article for tomorrow on on players being friends and it not being as competitive at times. And did you see the Kerfoot Kachuk clip?
No, Kerfoot Bennett.
Yes.
It's a Kerfoot
I did.
Bennett.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's Bennett. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
So lining up for a face-off.
Yeah.
Kerfoot comes in there and says, "Love you, bud." And
Not as much as before now.
and when Bennett says, "Hold on, say that louder, say it into the mic or something," he says, I did. And so he wins a draw and he goes, "Don't love you as much as before," or something like that.
What happened to the game I love?
What happened to the game? I love?
We should
So
break.
where would that history have come from?
I don't know.
Are you sure it's Bennett?
Is it Bennett and Kerfoot?
I am almost 100% positive that it is that. I can relook at it, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Anyways,
They,
fine.
I was watching on my phone. So I
from
missed it.
beating the drum.
Utah and Florida last night.
Yeah.
And what did you kind of conclude? Because you know how I feel, obviously.
I
And
concluded
this is based on
my conclusion in the article.
The Joel Farabee exchange.
Dewar, this exchange.
Yeah.
My conclusion is that this all raises the value of villains.
It is neither Bennett or Kachuk. It is Sam Reinhart.
Reinhardt, okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what the history is there.
And
Maybe-
Kerfoot.
It raises the value of villains. Because when I was in college and I was chit-chatting with guys on the ice and
Yeah.
cutting deals,
Yeah.
I remember trying to cut a deal with David Backus, and he punched me in the face so hard, and he did not want to be buddies,
Yeah.
and it was not fun to be on the ice. And I didn't want to play as much against David Backus.
And,
I was just saying it's really valuable to have these guys like last night, Miller and Tom Wilson going toe-to-toe.
Oh, I loved that game last night.
They right at each other.
Loved
No deals cut.
Everything about the Vancouver Canucks
Yeah, good game.
last night in Washington was what you would love in a hockey
No
game.
love you, buds.
Right?
so Sam
Pierre-Luc
Reinhart.
Dubois goes right
and-
around and gets the best defenseman in the league.
We got a national hour to talk
No,
about.
no, I know. Okay, all right.
Sam Reinhart and Alex Kerfoot, both North Vancouver guys. I'm sure maybe they played
Oh, yeah,
junior,
yeah.
they played
There it is.
minor hockey
Yeah.
together
There
or
it
whatever.
is.
So
Yeah.
But again, like
there you go.
we want to mic them, and they're thinking about ways to entertain us when just
The NHL is.
the players are chatting online because they know they're mic'd
Online.
or they're
On
chatting
the World Wide Web.
on
www.
on their wires,
On
they're-
their
on
chat
their on their microphones.
Yes, yes.
But they're doing it because they know it's out there and it could go viral.
I don't know.
what
I don't
what is
think-
what is the purpose of that?
I don't
You know
think
you're
Kerfoot
mic'd.
knows that at the time. I don't think he knows that.
No,
I
he
think,
says I'm mic'd, right?
Well, the other guy says it to him after
Yeah.
he gives him the love you,
Okay,
bud.
All right.
But my other thought was that the NHL needs the PGA's player incentive money, and we need these guys to try to entertain a little bit.
well,
But that's a separate conversation.
We should go.
Okay.
But they played, and just to finish off that conversation, Alex Kerfoot and Sam Reinhart played together on the 2010-2011 Vancouver Northwest Giants
There you go.
under 18 Triple A.
Northwest
Good pickup.
Giants.
There we
How
go.
did we not
there
know
it
that?
is. See, it's always connected dots in this world, folks.
Boom.
It really should
You'll
have been in the
figure a
national
lot
hour.
out. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, Aaron Ward, Stanley Cup
Whoa,
champion.
friend.
Wardo.
Stanley Cup champion with the Carolina Hurricanes. He'll give us the goods on whether or not the Hurricanes still have a window to be good or not. Wardo, when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. Welcome back into the Real Kyper and Bourne show. So, Sammy, how many calls yet? Give people a reminder that we're doing a
Leafs line.
what is it called?
I called it the Leafs line.
Yes.
It's a voicemail.
So we can get Joe from Scarborough.
Yeah, I drove from Etobicoke, Tony and Maple, probably a couple of those. But I got to tell you, it's off the hook. But get to Wardo. He doesn't have that much time. So
All
we'll talk
right,
after.
let's
Yeah.
get to our next caller. Aaron from Raleigh. You're on the Real Kyper
There
and Bourne
he
show.
is.
Go ahead.
Hey, careful. I do have a burner account that exists. It's out there, and it's clearly like a parody, but you might get me involved somewhere here.
Buddy, how are you, man? We haven't had you on for a while. It's great hearing from you. For those of you that watch our show, great seeing you. How are things going?
It's good. I think you guys are taking a bit of a risk, though, because this is my virgin foray into using FaceTime. So I'll just warn you that the people in Roland Garros were doing a presentation with statistics, and I moved my hands the wrong way, and they got balloons and hearts and fireworks coming across the picture. So
Awesome.
I got to keep my hands down. Yeah, this could get interesting. We're dealing with Boomer over here.
Awesome stuff. Well, tonight we're going to tee up the Carolina Hurricanes and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And just before going to commercial break, I talked about the expectations of the Carolina Hurricanes. And, you know, if the window's still open to maybe win a championship or be one of 7, 8, 10 teams that can legitimately win. From your view on the club overall, and maybe not the last 2 or 3 weeks where they've won one, lost one, won one, lost one, what have you seen out of this hockey club?
So, full transparency, being a former player here and living here, I actually held out no hope. I thought the idea that they had lost so many guys, I thought, well, man, they're not going to be able to withstand the loss to Shea for what he brought to the table. I mean, Pesce, clearly that component, going out, getting Gensel, Kuznetsov on whatever level, and then Teravainen for the kind of the chemistry that he has with Aho, with making him feel comfortable and what they had going on there. So I thought there's no chance. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, prognosticating, saying they would probably make wild card. So I will tell you that I'm surprised by what they've managed to do. Truth be told, this is Carolina, who's a heavily analytics-built team. Their mentality is this, that they can replace a player, maybe not as good, but like-minded and like-capable. So they have, you know, clearly brought some players in, and they've maintained a level of play that's exceeded what I thought. But when watching them and seeing how they played from the start of the season, I go back to what you just said a second ago. The consistency sometimes against given competition, it's like they sometimes play down to some teams and then compete up against the better ones. So I don't know what that make is. They play the same style that, you know, Carolina has played for the same 4 years of they make very few mistakes in their own end because they're, you know, up in the top 2 or 3 usually of lobbing the puck out of their own end. They don't give the puck away in that capacity. They generate their offense of puck retrieval, chances off puck retrieval. And it's the same team in terms of style, but some of the players have changed, and you can really see where Carolina is hurting right now. Their power play, even though they're sitting at 12, there were 2 last year. And that was one of the major aids in generating offense. So I think that's where some of the questions come.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like the Leafs. But one thing...
I don't think it's a lot like the Leafs. Actually, I got to tell you, I was talking to a friend of mine in Toronto, and he's like, well, what's your analysis of Leafs? I'm like, almost something completely different that I've been accustomed to. Usually the Leafs have like this chaotic story that you've got, like, oh, they got to address this. I almost feel like there's been small components that we've talked about, but there's never really been a major overarching problem. Like, okay, yeah, Matthews' injury, that could be a major one, but I feel like there's a even keelness, if that's such a word, to the Toronto Maple Leafs that's not normal for them.
Yeah,
and it's kind of scary for the rest of the teams around. Like, they've got some pieces in that I think, like, I'm a huge closet Matthew Knies fan. He's almost an old school throwback kind of player that I feel like Scotty Bowman would have loved him, like that kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they've solved some issues and bring in some presence. But like I said, for me, Carolina, it's still a question mark.
Yeah. So where do you stand in general team building? As the Leafs are different in that they are run, you know, they are elite talent, and they've been trying to fill in around that elite talent for years. Carolina is kind of like the collective. You have experience winning a Stanley Cup on a team that I think most would say was a collective and not a star-driven team. Can that still work today?
So Roddy coaching and not being in a locker room, I always heed to the idea that you never know the truth unless you're sitting in that locker room, hearing what's being said and feeling philosophically and psychologically where the team is at. How he coaches, though, I think the team takes on that identity, right? So we had the story about Natchez looking at going elsewhere last year, and that was a dominating storyline here in Carolina. But I think what Natchez was evaluating was, okay, if the system for me is not typically ideal for a skill set guy, I can probably operate within this system, but where do I fall in the pecking order? I think that's where they've struggled. So the idea of how he disperses his team is almost like that playoff mentality of having equal parts. I'll give you an example. The LA Kings 2 or 3 years ago, if you looked at them top to bottom, line 1 through 4, they were highly successful during their run because they were able to disperse evenly the statistical output. I think this is the same philosophy with Carolina. When you have Jarvis up top with Aho and Roslovic, and then you look down and you're like, okay, well, Natchez is sitting on the second line, and then there's another panic, like Svechnikov is sitting on the third line. What are they doing? I think it applies to this, to the style and the system that Roddy has these guys playing. That's effective, and guys have bought in.
So here we got an owner in Tom Dundon who took over, I think, sole possession of this hockey club maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And not that I know his history of his business history, but the perception is out there that he would find undervalued businesses and build them up. And, maybe he brought that philosophy into the hockey club a little bit. And I'm not saying it can't be done, because you can money ball maybe to a certain extent. But then once those assets get a little bigger, it's hard to keep them, i.e. Brett Pesce. So where is he today? My understanding is Jake Gensel wanted to be in Carolina, wanted to be a Hurricane. He wanted him there. He just did not offer him enough money when he needed to. You think he's learned a little bit here moving forward, or you're shaking your head? No.
I think they maintain a very static and consistent philosophy here in Carolina that you have. So I'll give you an example of this. We have an alumni game coming up here for the Eric Stahl jersey retirement. And we joke amongst alumni that 2019 on, the majority of the fan base here has changed. They identify with the Ahos. They identify with the Svechnikovs. And so as long as you have those components there, where there's like a fan-based loyalty to it, knowing what I said earlier when we started this, they're a heavily data analytics-driven team, and that includes not just how you approach the game, but the players and the lineup you present, or how you deconstruct or construct your lineup. Tulsky here, although he doesn't say much of anything ever to anybody or give an indication of how things work, by the process of deduction, working for Dundon, he's very good at economizing players, evaluating what he thinks a guy is going to get. Can you hold on to him? Are you better to get more picks for that guy for the long term? So I think they really take a long-term 60,000-foot view approach, rather than finding any loyalty to a given piece or component or player on this team. So yes, you're correct. Their philosophy is, once you price yourself out of here, and this is an outsider's observer, or part of the Tuesday Alumni Club conversation in the locker room as we evaluate this team, once you price yourself out of where we think you should land, then you're expendable. And that's just factual for 90% of this team. And that's the way they work this team. So he's smart about how he runs his money. They evaluate players top to bottom on how they can fit into a lineup, not just what they can bring to a lineup, but will they complement other players? Can they possibly play within the system that Roddy has set down? And going back to answering the question you said about how Tom runs his organization, the fact that how he started it here was offering the first coach $300,000 to prove themselves as a head coach in the National Hockey League tells you that there's the standard set, and it will be consistent going forward.
So I know you have to go here shortly, so just need to get a quick goaltending question in for Carolina.
I'm good till 4:55.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Yes. So quick goaltending question then for Carolina. Are they just gonna go status quo and hope someone plays well?
Dude, I honestly, again, I don't work for the organization. I watch them a ton because I live here.
Yeah.
I watch Montreal a ton, and I watch every other, 30 other teams equal parts. My biggest head scratcher is, at what point, we're going back to Mrazek. When are we going to just come up with something that's going to answer the question in net? And that's ironic that I'm sitting here on a Toronto radio station talking about this, but when do we answer the question in net? You got guys that don't perform in the playoffs. You guys are consistently injured. This is a team that, as we say, your last question was, you're economizing, you're trying to bring the best out of players. I don't think goaltending position is a place you play with that.
Right.
You got to find your horse. And we've been dealing with ponies here for a little while. They want someone to step up, but they haven't graduated that level of owning the net and having it. Kochetkov is entertaining, and I think he's fully capable, but he's young. And like as you see the process of what Montembeault did in Montreal, he's ascending in terms of maturity, skill, and composure, and owning his net. I think that process still exists for him, and his ceiling's high, but he's not quite there yet. And again, as you talk about like the window, how long is your window open with this core composition of guys?
How about Brent Burns? Get him to play net. He seems to be doing everything else for this.
Wonder.
Unbelievable.
So we have guys, I think, that play in our alumni game that are younger than him. How we get our information is there's usually the injury skate at the practice rink and the alumni go on after, where you just show up early. And I mean, your cohort, Justin Williams, sometimes out there working out Jarvis when he was injured. We meet some of the guys, get some of the inside information. But Burns is a machine, and just. When's it going to end? We were joking the other day about some guys coming out and debuting again in their 40s in the Spanish league and
Spanish league.
I mean, I know we're looking at other ways to play pro hockey, but Burns seems to be just there's no downturn in his performance, and what he means to this team, I think, is more invaluable to the team than anything. Like how he deals with the young guys, how he teaches guys to deal with adversarial situations. It doesn't only fall on Roddy to guide the team. He's an extension of Roddy.
So the participating alumni at your game that you guys are going to have: Ray Whitney, Rod Brindamore, Cam Ward, Justin Williams, Mike Commodore, Chad LaRose, Tim Gleason, Eric Cole, Sean Hill, Patrick Eves, Derek Stepan. How are the boys? How's it going with the alum?
Let me tell you something. So how this came about was we played the UNC, University of North Carolina, Ocha D1 team in August. Steve Rice is the head coach of them, and we did it for a charity game. Packed the barn, kicked the snot out of them.
Did you really?
Oh my God! So here's
the D1 team.
They talked crap too. They were like, "Oh, young legs, we're going to make him." Here's the thing: if you're chasing the puck the entire time and you don't know how to play systems, we will outsmart you. We will hockey IQ you to death. So it was competitive for the first period. It was like 3-1, and then I think it ended up 9-2. And guys were like, "Yeah, we were like doing the old Messi to whoever, like the triangle passing and then popping it." And we didn't have Justin Williams. We didn't have some of these guys. So now our group is pretty good. The NC State team is pretty good. We are lodging a labor complaint for the D, though. If you look at that list, 5 defensemen. So Cam Ward's coming out and playing as a player for the second and third period. Dude, you should see him. He's the Adam Oates of the alumni game.
There's a magician or what?
Dude crushes it. He's like always under control. His composure's there, dishes off, but he front loads his team though. He sits in like politics in the locker room for everybody to wear a dark jersey. So the NHL guys all are on his team, and some of the guys that played like college hockey or junior end up on ours.
There's a Seinfeld episode where Kramer he walks into Jerry's apartment with his golf clubs and throws them down.
Yeah.
And goes, "I stink." And that's me now every Thursday morning. How's your game?
Our game's good. We actually started it for mental health reasons.
No, how are you?
Your game. Your game.
Never changed. I didn't go fast. And guess what? There's still glass on every arena, so I can get off the glass out pretty easy.
Wardo, welcome back, man. It's good to have you back on the show. Thanks for doing this.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Wardo.
Aaron Ward, Stanley Cup champion, multiple Stanley Cup champion.
That's great.
He's awesome. He's really good.
I'm really not surprised that the former NHLers work the D1 team.
I am.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think most time. I don't think that would I don't know what UNC is all about, but
for those of you that saw him on Zoom, the guy looks like he could still play.
He looks very fit.
But I mean, you saw that club team beat the defending champions in the preseason. Like a UNLV's club team beat Denver in the preseason 7-6 in a shootout. Like, I don't know, they're NHLers. Like, it's like Eric Stahl's on the list. Like, you could beat them.
Well, sure. I think it depends on the age of the alumni group, and this is obviously a younger one.
Anyways, that was a great chat.
Okay, we're just getting started. Our thanks to Aaron Ward for joining us. Stick around. Ray Ferraro, ESPN hockey analyst, former teammate of mine in New York, all briefly and all, but love having Ray on. You're not going to want to miss that. We're going to pick up a very hot discussion on the Vancouver Canucks, plus much more. So do not go away. on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. All right, let's take it live nationally on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. You are watching on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver, Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. In a few minutes, we'll welcome in Ray Ferraro, ESPN hockey analyst, former National Hockey Leaguer. Does a terrific job also on Sportsnet, following the Vancouver Canucks. Of course, they'll lead us again and maybe lead us for the rest of the season if this Days of Our Lives soap opera continues out of Vancouver.
It's funny because, when we have a guest on, Sammy just has some topics that we can bring up for potential questions if we like them or not. The top one is it's just Canucks in disarray. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
they're
what
in
else do you
disarray.
say?
Yeah,
And I know 10 overtime losses.
That may be how I asked the question.
Okay,
Ray, Canucks in disarray. Just the Ron McLean lead.
Kind of rhymes.
And we've accused covering the Leafs the last week and a half of not playing that much in terms of inspirational hockey. And it was kind of, it was okay. They got their points. They got through it. Didn't get any of that last night on our national show with the Vancouver Canucks and the Washington Capitals. Good game. Passionate game. Played hard.
Miller and Wilson.
The Vancouver Canucks played hard.
Yeah. That was a really fun hockey game to watch.
Really fun hockey game to watch. So, people are sitting there going, oh, they got to do something. And I'm like,
maybe they're fine.
Go watch Miller out there last night where he's banging and he's in people's faces and you can still see he's wincing a little bit on the left shoulder, yet he's still out there battling. I mean, yeah, go ahead, trade him. Go ahead. But
that's a scary thought.
Envision that team without him right now.
Tocchet has to love that. Talk about your emotional leaders, someone to stand up to Wilson and just be there. Talk about, fun game. You enjoyed the Dubois chasing down Hughes at one point.
I gotta say,
enjoyed, but
my biggest takeaway from watching that game last night, that if you're our boy Luc Robitaille or Rob Blake watching Pierre-Luc Dubois play this season, you want to get a dartboard with his face on it and throw darts at it. Because he was a force last night. Backhand check.
2 great goals. Physical presence.
What do they get back for him?
Darcy Kemper, starting goalie.
Boy, you act like that's good?
I don't know. I mean, he's not a bad goalie.
It's fine.
But what the promise of what Pierre-Luc Dubois potentially
it's always
can
been
be.
more than what he's really been.
And hey, the other side of this has come up and everywhere he's gone, and it's always soured. But when it's good, it's really good. And right now, it's looking pretty good.
There's always that chance that you just got to accept that for whatever reason it didn't work out, whether it's on Pierre-Luc Dubois, whether it was on the LA Kings, whether it was on chemistry, line mates. Sometimes you just got to cut your losses. And I don't know whether or not, and truly only Jimmy Rutherford and Patrick Alvin would know this, on where they cut their losses on whatever is going on in that dressing room between the two players. Is there still time for them to go, we had a good effort last night, JT Miller's still bringing it, come on guys, work it out? Or is it the LA Kings looking at Pierre-Luc Dubois and say, oh, we got to get him out of here. We got to get somebody out of here.
Yeah. I don't know. And you just look at the difference between what Pettersson and Miller make, right? Miller's cheaper. He's this emotional leader type. You can see Tocchet loving that. Fascinating. Our Dollywall, we had him on last week. He was so good on our show.
Yeah. They're just, I can only imagine their daily shows.
Yeah, they must be electric right now. But he had some comment where he talked about the Zibanejad trade with Pettersson and said kind of what holds it up is that Vancouver's always asking about Schneider. They want Schneider. They want that D.
Yeah, I wrote my article today. I did some news and notes in my Toronto Star article.
Came across it in the newspaper organically. Very much enjoyed that. Nice piece.
I wrote about information that I've gathered on Zibanejad shutting down, going to Vancouver. So, we're dealing with guys with no move clause. Of of course, you can talk all you want, but if one turns around and says, I'm not going out there and not interested, and then it's over.
So, full disclosure, I just read the Berube portion. I didn't see the news and notes in the print edition. So I didn't see that. It's an interesting little nugget.
So now, listen, everybody's got a right to change their minds, and there could be more pressure points in various ways. But as of today, I'm told that Zibanejad does not want to go from the New York Rangers to the Vancouver Canucks.
From one pressure cooker to another pressure cooker.
All right, let's welcome him in. We've had him on the show before. Ray Ferraro.
How are you, Ray?
What's happening, bud? What's going on? Where are you? Where are we finding you?
I'm at home. I'm watching my 15-year-old cook lunch. So looks like a little chicken and pasta he's got going here.
Are your kids like mine, where they could like make a sandwich, know that you're like within an arm's length away, not even think about making you one, or giving a bite? Not even a bite.
Chance. Not a chance.
Like, what about me? You didn't ask me if I wanted a sandwich?
Ray's watching. He's getting his lunch made.
No chance. No chance. Here's the other part to that. And when they leave, it's like 43 people cooked in the kitchen. It's like, what just happened here? Although I will say this, Reese, who's cooking right here, he does it. The older one, Riley, he can, and he's quite capable. He just doesn't. Yeah. He knows if he stands here long enough, somebody will make something for him.
Do they even know the fees involved in Uber Eats? Do you think they've got a clue on that?
No, I will say this. I don't know any parent could make a worse decision than giving their kid access to the Uber. Like, what a terrible choice. That doorbell would fall off.
Just a $43 grilled cheese every lunch.
Yes, exactly. Like, not a chance, man. No way.
So let's start off on what seems to be the hottest topic for like quite some time now, and that's the Vancouver Canucks with JT Miller and Patterson. Our producer here writes down Canucks in disarray and just leaves it open-ended. So where are you in all of this? Because I saw a pretty inspired game last night out of them against the Washington Capitals. So that in itself is a good sign for me.
I would agree. I mean, it's been a circus, right? Like since the story broke, well, let me put it this way. As soon as the story broke, there's no chance to shut it down. Mm-hmm. It's just going to run its course through everybody talking about it and adding a tidbit here or something they heard from somebody else here. And the story just feeds itself. There's like, once it becomes a story, like how could you possibly shut it down? Like, you just can't. I'm reading like, how could a trade work between New York and Vancouver? How could one work between the Islanders and Vancouver? Some of the scenarios are like, there's just no chance. I'm like, how would anybody think some of these trades would happen? Mm-hmm. Like they just wouldn't. And so for one reason or like, do they think if Vancouver's plans to trade one of the two guys, do you think they're taking the dregs of your roster back for these guys? Like some of the proposals, you're like, that somebody just made that up. Like, it's not a thing. Somewhere along the line, there's been some friction. People that have more in-room knowledge than me have said that. Kip, you played on a Stanley Cup winner. Did that team get along for 8 months?
Yeah.
No way.
Listen, I appreciate that everybody, for the most part, can say we've gone through teams, but generally speaking, the one that stands up last winning a Stanley Cup, it's not anywhere near from what we're hearing out of the Vancouver Canuck dressing room. That's all. This I've never heard of this before.
You haven't?
Not to this degree.
It's just never been talked about.
Never been talked about. Never been pushed. Like, Ray, to hear.
Okay, but who can? Okay, go ahead.
To hear where this has gone. Clearly, someone's leaking.
Where is it gone?
Where's it gone? It's gone out of the dressing room. The players,
right?
Like,
but Where does that happen? Somebody tells somebody tells another.
Yeah.
Somebody, agent maybe says something. I'm not saying that it's not a thing. Clearly it has been, because it has been, because it's been talked about for months. These guys were in the same room last year. Nobody really talked about it last year.
But where is somebody to stand up, either through management, the players, or somebody to say, this is ridiculous and it's not as bad as you think? Like, drive that point home. Nobody really wants to step up and say, BS. It's all BS.
A pick of them sharing an In-N-Out burger would solve the whole thing.
It's not one and done by JT Miller in 10 seconds.
It could, I guess he did do something like that, and everybody just kind of let it go for a bit.
And then they piled it on again.
Yeah, but Kip, if you want to pile it on, go ahead and pile it on. Like, what are they going to do? They can't move in together. Right? Like, what are they going to do? One guy's hurt, one guy's with the team, one guy's not with the team. Like, whatever was bugging JT Miller, that he took a personal leave of absence. Generally, I wouldn't think you come back and everything's fine. Whatever's going on with JT, you're still dealing with whatever pulled you away from the team and the lineup. Whatever was bugging Pettersson early in the year, he was terrible. He had his first, I don't know, man, did he go 10 games without a goal to start? Something like that. Like, really, really a tough start. So they play poorly. The story breaks. They're on the ice 4 to 5 minutes a game together, like it would be on the power play. Like, how much? I really don't know. How much can it detonate a team?
Well,
does maybe a defense that they knew they were going to have to upgrade that now got worse without Roenick? Does that have more to do with it? Does Dakota Joshua going from 18 goals to a player just trying to find his game somewhere, does that have something to do with it? Do Miller going with 2 goals in 20 games have something to do with it? Does Pettersson no goals in, 15? Does that all have something to do with it? Probably.
Could Patrick or Rutherford come out and say, I'm not trading either one of them, it's ridiculous, and put an end to it?
Yeah, he could. Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That might help.
Unless that's not what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, people can conjure up trade scenarios that they think are factual or not. The simple fact is, JT Miller's agent said last week somewhere, I can't even keep it straight, nobody's talked to them. Mm-hmm. So all these trade scenarios, you can't get past first base until you talk to the player with the no-move contract.
Yeah.
So this thing about Zibanejad for Miller,
who also has one.
Yeah, well, like it's not a thing. Now you've got to get 2 people to agree. Zibanejad's already said no.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I live here. It would be, like on those years in Toronto when it's an absolute circus. Like this year, There's been nothing.
Yes.
Right? There's been nothing. It's been actually shocking in its quietness. But there's been years in Toronto, trade Marner, trade this guy, what goalie stinks or doesn't stink, or the defense is no good. And once it starts, I would say it's unstoppable. It's going to continue to be talked about. And until this part of the season is dealt with in whatever way they choose to do it, whether one of them gets moved or not, I think there's 2 trade deadlines this year. I think just prior to the Four Nations, I believe there'll be a flurry of activity, and then that's the trade deadline, because I think a lot of teams would love to get their guys in with a week to sort of get settled in there, right? It would be kind of ideal. And then there's those 3 weeks past Four Nations to the deadline. So I mean, these are, if you're making this type of move, damn, that's a big move. Like the Dubois trade, which was 1-for-1, that was in the off season. Could you imagine trying to make that trade and making the numbers fit and everything fit in season? It would be really logistically difficult, whether you want to pull the trigger or not.
So is there an outcome here there? Is it possible then that these guys chit-chat and they kind of sort it out a little bit? This is a 113-point team last year. Demko's been hurt for a good chunk of the season. Right. Quinn Hughes looks amazing again. And I'm looking at the standings, and the teams behind Vancouver, they're in the second wildcard spot. Not great. Like, this still feels like a playoff team that still feels like, when healthy, has a ton of potential to do damage.
I don't disagree, because I believe the plan has been to add along the blue line at the very least from the start of the year. Now, there has not been 1 week of quietness in this season. It's literally always been something, from Demko not ready for camp to Miller, who wasn't at camp, wasn't playing games, played one exhibition game, to Pettersson's start, to Joshua's cancer diagnosis, to Roenick getting hurt, to Miller leaving the team, to this feud of whatever it is between Pettersson and Miller. I watched the game last night, and I'm like, you know what? If Pettersson's playing, they probably win last night. And so you could say that with a couple of their overtime losses. You go, like, if both of their big guys are playing, do they win, I don't know, a third of those games to a half of them? Probably, right? Like, probably. They win a third of them. Anyway, now they're fighting for second and third place in the division. It's a completely different thing. Well, you can keep waiting for that, but eventually you got to make a decision. Can this re-gel? Can this be like it was last year? And if it can't, then you got to make a move, whether you want to or not, because you've got this runway to Pettersson's no trade, but we have seen countless times guys with no moves and no trades, they still get traded anyway. Somehow they figure out a way to do it. It would be easier now if that's what they choose to do. If it's Miller, then they got to get his say-so to wherever he goes. And then once you get the yes, then you got to put the deal together. Like, these are really impactful players. And so really impactful people are coming back. They're not making this deal for 2 first-rounders. Like, that's not what they're doing.
You're watching and listening to Ray Ferraro, ESPN, Sportsnet hockey analyst, one of the good ones out there. So, Razor, I'm watching last night again. Quinn Hughes do his best, like Brian Leach, Bobby Orr, Cale Makar, whatever it is. I don't know if he ended up with 28 minutes last night, something around there. You know, I'm also watching Pierre-Luc Dubois kind of try to ragdoll him a little bit. And, like, he's not the biggest, strongest, most physical guy. You know, is there anything going to be left of him by March and April if he's the first guy leading the rush and the first guy back on the back check? And
but what a back check! What
a back check! And all, like, I'm just worried about, like, the wear and tear on this guy catching up to him.
Well, I think they probably would too. The one thing that big minute guys do, and you know, it's funny, when I've not really thought of it in this way, but when you brought up Leachy, that short time I was in New York, I was always amazed. We would do a bag skate of some sort, and then the next day he'd play 27 minutes. And I'm like, could he start breathing hard ever? Like, we're all over there. My face is as red as a tomato. You know, Kip's lugging around a barrel, and Leachy is just like sailing.
Yeah, after 62 on the VO bike test, yes. You know?
And then he kind of, like, they kick him off, and they're like, go sit down. You're like, enough. We got to get these other dummies on here. Quinn plays these 28 minutes, and it's like Miro Heiskanen, it's like Cale Makar, like the great skaters, and Leachy I would put in that, I would absolutely put him in that group, is that they just don't seem to get tired. They don't get hit as much as you think they would. Like, remember before they redid the Garden, the way the benches were angled. And so on our bench, I'll never forget this, there was a play in the corner, and the puck got dumped in, and Leachy went to get it, and there was a guy going down the boards and another coming from his right shoulder, from the back. And, like, you couldn't really see down in the corner. And he came out of the corner and was skating up the ice. These other 2 guys were chasing him. I'm like, how did he do that? Like, he should have been hit. But their skating takes him out of that. They would love to get Hughes, I'm sure, to a more manageable minute. Phil Hronek started to skate in Abbotsford.
That's good news.
Great news, man. They need him. And then they need to go find somebody else as well. And I think, as I said, that's the plan. The problem is, I'm sure you guys are talking about now teams that are starting to look for certain pieces. Everybody's looking for the same 10 players.
Yep.
Right? Like everybody, we want a puck mover. We'd like a guy that shoots right-handed, a guy that could play both sides. We're looking for a second or third line center. We're looking for a power forward. There's like very few players that fit these things. Mm-hmm. But Vancouver's got to find somebody with a little more mobility on their blue line. It was like, what did the Leafs, as much as the Leafs have added pieces here and there, Chris Tanev to me is just like the piece that they needed, because you put him out there and whoever you put him with becomes a better player, because Tanev's like the janitor, right? He cleans everything up. And then his minutes are just looked after. Everybody slots back in. If we're talking specifically to Vancouver, they don't have that. Quinn's minutes are everywhere, and they're always. And I assume it would be a tough way to play, even with all his remarkable skills. But again, I do think that's been their stated goal, really, for a lot of the year.
I know we got to let you go soon, but quickly, just your assessment of maybe Canada's best chance to win a Stanley Cup amongst, I don't know, Edmonton, Toronto, Winnipeg, Vancouver on the outside looking in this year, opposed to.
I would say that it's funny how the conference has flipped from, every few years to more difficult or not. Who's really better than Toronto right now? Like maybe Florida, right?
Florida, yeah. No one's like head and shoulders above.
That's what I mean. Like, look, I've done a half a dozen Washington games, and I love the way they play. They're big and they're aggressive, and Spencer Carberry is a terrific coach, and he has got them. It took them about 6 months last year to break the old Capitals way, because they had a lot of guys from the 19 team, and they wanted to play a little bit more upbeat and all that. And they squeaked into the playoffs. This year, they look completely different. Washington is a really good team, but a lot of those guys have never had their first touch of the playoffs. And we always know, a real touch. And we always know that there always seems to be a little bit of a learning curve to that. Florida is going to be a pain. They've got cap room. You think they'd add a defenseman. So Florida is going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. I think Toronto has an easier road than the teams in the West. But I look at Edmonton right now, Edmonton and Vegas. It's easy to say they're the class of this, but geez, would you count Colorado out?
Not anymore.
Nope.
No. They look like they got a guy that can stop the puck. And you're like, oh boy, that all of a sudden they become really good. But Edmonton is like, what I love? I think what I like about Edmonton, I like about Toronto too, is the way that they're winning right now is a way that becomes a sustainable way to win in April and May. And they're not giving up a lot of goals. Yeah, you'd like to see them score a little bit more sometimes, but they score enough. And if they get into it, if you've got a one-shot chance, wouldn't you want those guys on both teams shooting it? Probably. But man, the fact that they can defend, like Edmonton's 15-3-1 right now. They're as good as anybody. The scary part of this whole thing out west here is Vegas has got cap room. What makes anyone think they're not going to use it?
They're going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
I would say Toronto and Edmonton in Canada, Kip, they're the class.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I haven't even talked about Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And damn, I don't know. I guess I like them too. They need a defenseman. They need a second line centerman. Does Chevy move one of those draft picks? Maybe. I think if you're in the top 5 teams, don't worry about the future. You got to go in. How many times does it all fit? One year or the next? I'd go big game hunting if I'm them. I really would, because they're a really good team.
Well, we're going to look forward to the back half of the season and get you on again real soon, pal. Thanks for doing this.
Great to talk to you guys. I hope you guys got off to a great start in the new year, and we'll see you somewhere.
You too, Ray. Thanks so much.
That is Ray Ferraro, ESPN Sportsnet.
Yeah, the Jets have all their first rounders coming up. They can do something. So, yeah.
They don't have to move in together.
Yeah.
He reminded me at Madison Square Garden, those benches were angled. He's right. They weren't.
What do you mean angled? I didn't understand
They weren't kind of parallel to the boards. They were angled.
So what, you're farther from the ice on the D end?
Yes.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It was really dumb.
I actually really love. That's one thing about like rinks that I love is the intricacies of the different rinks. I mean, like not like in like in an NHL for sure, but around Ontario, around Canada, like the different rinks.
I played in junior hockey league, and some of them are square. Some of the
I remember I played in one with my dad at a hockey tournament. It was in Pembroke, where the Lumber Kings, where Sheldon Keefe won all those championships, and we played in the rink. And I was like, "There's something weird about this," and the benches were on the opposite sides of the ice.
Wow.
So like the player, so it was just like there's no last change. You just change at the same. And you're just I guess they didn't want these guys to murder each other in the 30s, so maybe they couldn't be beside each other. But it was like very weird.
That's not better. Maybe we should go back to that. I like
across.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
Anyway,
what do you think? You don't care. Okay. Game time.
Yep. Game time.
Unless, hold on. Do you have more reflections on the Ray Ferraro interview? Any thoughts out of that?
No, but he's right. We'll just continue to hear all of this on a daily basis until someone steps up from somewhere and says either they're going, they're not going, or just. But they're gonna have to find a way to quiet the noise.
It is funny because there's sometimes in a relationship, maybe a marriage, say, where you still feel like you're right about something, but you're like, just for the good of ending this, I'm wrong. You'll just say, I'm sorry, I goofed that one. You'll just say it, right? Let's just get through this. It's amazing.
There is so many scenarios that there are so many just goofy stories like that within a room, but they don't get out to this extent.
No, I know, but this is what I'm saying.
That's my point.
So it's amazing that they can't go out arm in arm in the media for a minute and be like, we're pals. It's fine. We're pals. Move along and end it. But they obviously are so mad about this, whatever this is, that they can't bring themselves to stage a photograph to end it.
Management, ownership, coaches, nobody can bring themselves to end it.
But in these relationships that I'm talking about, there's some fights where you're like, I'm digging in on this one. This is not a place I'm rolling over. And that's what this seems to be. It's a serious thing.
So let's say, for example, we had Jim Rutherford on Real Kyper and Bourne, their national hour, and he comes on with you two guys, and he says, there is absolutely no way we are trading either one of these guys. We have to make this work. And then they still like trying to trade them. But do people stop asking?
You don't say that if you so you're saying he needs to come out and lie?
I'm asking,
does he have the power to
I'm asking, does that make any difference at all?
Well, I think people would hold Jimmy Rutherford to it.
It would affect your reputation.
And it would definitely affect your reputation.
So then that's why no one said anything.
It would be a lot harder.
No one wants to be the one who's the liar.
It would be a lot harder for him to say anything the next go around and have anybody believe him if he was in a position to flat out lie to you on this occasion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, lying to other people versus...
It puts credibility at stake.
Okay.
That's often, we talk about GMs who might be on their last leg, and they're like, he might burn the draft picks and just go for broke or whatever. You can't do that because the next team knows you're the guy who burns things down on the way. Yeah. So we don't tend to see stuff like
Kyle got another job, so in Pittsburgh. I mean, he traded every pick.
Yeah, but over many years, not in a last-ditch Hail Mary. It was several Hail Marys.
Yeah. And I don't believe for one second it didn't hurt Kyle in some way, shape, or form.
Didn't hurt his pocketbook.
The way, listen, if that's all that matters.
He's a young man.
If that's all that matters to you, good on you.
I'm not saying that is.
I got to think, you got to recover off of that ending and the way it played out and, the dramatics, right? The drama.
It was dramatic.
It was very dramatic.
Okay.
You have game time for us there?
I do. I was liking Kyper's pronunciations there.
Yes.
So let me get it for you here. Where's my sheet? All right. It's game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app, latest odds, and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Now, I was just looking up to try to find some of the futures because we haven't checked in on this in a while.
Hey, we got some good matchups tonight.
Okay, we can talk about that after this, but I'm just looking at some of the future stuff here. Or during this, but I just wanted to bring this up.
All right.
Since I am the
get
producer.
moving.
Well, you're yelling at me when I'm talking. You're yelling at me. The field versus Macklin Celebrini in the Calder Trophy race is quite interesting to me. So Macklin Celebrini is minus 250 to win the Calder.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
But if you go down here and you get Lane Hudson and Matt Vey Michkov, thank you. Lane Hudson is plus 300, Michkov is plus 450. If you want the field, you can get the field for plus 200 against those two guys. So
you get Dustin Wolf.
You get everybody. I mean, there's no one really outside of those three guys that get it, but you get plus money on either Lane Hudson or Matt
Michkov.
Thank you. Having a tough time.
Completely took himself out of the race against the Toronto Maple Leafs this week.
With the two
games where he just no-showed.
Well, Lane Hudson's still in it. So maybe if you want to get some value on Lane Hudson at plus 300 there.
Not that those games.
He just doesn't have. He just cannot keep up with those other.
5-on-5,
guys.
He's not.
No, he can't.
He's celebrating. He's
average
breaking
skater.
ankles like Lamar Jackson out there. It's different.
He's fantastic.
He's an average skater, Michkov. And I think he can be really good in small spaces and maybe have a good year producing, but he's not. He's not. There's nothing in his game that says you're going to watch him from one end of the ice make a rush to the other.
No, he's an offensive talent, great nose for it, great finisher, good shooter.
He'll never be Kucherov. He'll never. No.
Well, that's a massive.
I mean,
ceiling.
Not that I see.
Yeah, he's like one of the best players of a generation. The Hart Memorial, last one I'll bring up here. McDavid, still the favorite, plus 280.
Really?
Yeah. They're guarding again.
A lot of people see Draisaitl or Kaprizov.
I can't.
If he
I'm
gets healthy
sick.
again.
I didn't bet that.
Draisaitl was
like
plus
20
2,500.
is now plus
MVP.
550.
MVP.
We said that at the time.
Yeah.
You got to throw Mitch Marner in there, bud.
Mitch Marner is 80-1, bud. So probably not going to win. They're giving you that number, but Connor McDavid being the
That'd
favorite.
be a good bet.
I don't know if it would be.
80-1. It's good. It's good. It's a long number.
And he's like third in scoring, tied for third in scoring right now.
Yeah.
With no Matthews.
And not to mention in this market, he's got a lot of eyeballs.
A lot of eyeballs.
I just got to say, all the voters want to make sure they don't seem too Toronto-centric, so he'll never win. Anyways, that was Game Time, presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll get into some news and notes, including outdoor games, taking a little bit of the spotlight yesterday, and how do we feel about these?
I'm more curious about the science of it. How do you do ice?
We get a doctor on, and we get an ice expert.
Doctor. On outdoor games when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. Hey, Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. A reminder, this hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. Just to kind of follow up a little bit on Ray Ferraro, where he's 100% accurate is when you're talking about these major pieces, man. It's hard. Those are hard deals and a salary cap. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Similar pieces got to move. Similar pieces got to come back. You got to make the math work. It's just, they're not easy deals.
Well, and this is probably a crappy analogy to make, but I don't know if you've ever tried to make a trade in fantasy sports. Just says, hey, I'll give you this guy for that guy. It's impossible. No one wants to be embarrassed. No one wants to get fleeced. No, there's so much. And then you build in contracts and the human element and the families, and it's a tough thing to find a match for a guy like that.
I think, the Sabinajad interest and whatever you've been writing about. I mean, how many guys they make the same amount of money and he used to be pretty good and this why not? Well, how many options do we have? Let's give it a shot.
Clearly not many. It's the same thing when fans are like, our team needs a top right shot D.
Yeah, so does everybody.
Yeah, well, and it's like, who? Go ahead. I agree. Who is it? Who's available? And you go around the league, you're like, oh.
And that's why I thank my lucky stars every day for Mr. Christopher Tanev.
Yeah, right.
I do.
The janitor, Ray called him, which I think is a great nickname. Just cleans up all the messes.
It's a spectacular nickname.
Once again, last night, if we needed further proof that any team can win on any given night, the Chicago Blackhawks beat Colorado 3-1. Connor Bedard with a pretty good night, a goal and an assist.
Yeah.
Was contemplating whether or not we wanted to talk about Jeremy Roenick and his comments on Connor Bedard. And And then I said, yeah, let's talk about it because first and foremost, like I like JR.
Yeah.
Right? And
He's good on our
JR's
show.
like
One of my favorite interviews we've done in the last.
We're NHL alumni. So we're all a brotherhood in many ways. And like family, there's things that you're going to love about your brother, and then there's going to be things that you don't agree with.
Of course.
So JR was rather critical on Connor Bedard not acknowledging him, or Danny Savard, and who am I missing? One other?
I forget the other name, but
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And a lot was made out of it, out of social media. And I think first and foremost that there's so many other elements that could have kind of played into this, including, a young player still that gets pulled every which way.
By the league, yeah. This is at the Winter Classic, right?
This is at the Winter Classic. Tremendous.
Can we be honest? Maybe the reason the Blackhawks are in the Winter Classic.
I'd say that's fair.
But my point is, like, it could have been an overlaps on his part where, he's, who knows what's going through his mind,
Yeah.
how many things are going on. It could have just been a simple, moment where it didn't get done.
Yeah.
But I don't think in any way, shape, or form, especially watching Connor Bedard over the last year and a half, that this is a disrespectful kid.
No.
Right?
I would say the opposite.
So
I'll be honest. I typically hate this kind of stuff. I know it's like an AA program thing, but it's like expectations lead to resentments. If you expect expectations, you expect people to do things, be a certain way, treat you a certain way, that's how you end up
God, that's such
resentful.
a good saying.
And it's like you don't. I think it's unfair of JR to expect Bedard in that scenario as the focal point of a massive event to have done that, and so.
But this is go ahead. No, you go.
I just I totally understand everything you're saying about that.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should go on a podcast and maybe whine about it or talk about it like that. But probably should have gone up to him.
And that's what a lot of
he's just gotten the Hall of Fame. He's a Blackhawks legend.
sure
you probably should have gone and made a point.
Based under the
Anyways.
circumstances, I don't think it's unfair for you to say that. That seems to be a general feeling amongst a lot of people as well, that you shouldn't have used that platform to take a run at him, whatever the case is. Now, this is the part where I kind of get JR. And I think where he is coming from has less to do about him and Connor Bedard at the Winter Classic and more a general feeling amongst certain guys that have played the game that players today know less about their history than they've ever in any generation.
Okay.
And that's where I think JR have kind of gone to, and somehow, some way, maybe Connor got in the way of that.
That's interesting.
It is interesting, and I think it's a good point. A couple thoughts are just that I think this is partially typical of generations in all sports. I know Kareem felt like Shaq didn't pay him the tribute, the respect that he deserved. And there's that generational thing that I think happens when you step out of the limelight a little bit. I also think that your generation, when you played, you grew up watching how many teams? I don't know how many teams, 20 were in the league or something when you were watching? I think
he was watching
16,
the Montreal Millionaires.
16.
The
16
Montreal
to
Millionaires?
21
Yeah.
when WHA joined.
Like, I do think it was easier to know the history of the game when there was half as many teams.
What was the team that you were watching with Messier, the 1931 Ottawa Senators?
1927
27
Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah. The Ottawa Millionaires back then, or whatever they would have been
Yeah,
called.
no, I get
There
that.
should be a team called
I
the
get that.
Millionaires.
I think it was Vancouver was that.
One of the kind of chuckles we get as an NHL alumni as well is to hear some of the guys, at times maybe, and I'm not saying publicly, I'm just saying, between amongst a few beers about how crappy the salary cap is. And it's like, buddy, go ask someone in my generation on strikes and lockouts and what we tried to fight to keep.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't for us. It was for you guys behind us to have your rights protected and to keep, the growth of the game going. So, you're not complaining 20 years from now that your salaries haven't budged.
Right.
and they don't know.
You guys fought for pensions, and guys sat out whole years.
There's many of them that are clueless on what's happened on the business side. Now, listen, you could sit there and say, I'm a player, and it's my business to go out on the ice and play, and that stuff gets looked after by others. Mm-hmm. But don't complain about it then if you're going to be that way.
Yeah. You can't vote or complain about the president if you don't vote.
Yes. Same thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I mean, they're going down a weird road here, but like, do you think teams, when they all have their rookie camps and they all have all this stuff where they do all these orientations and they do these sit downs and these meetings with the young guys?
Some history.
Do you think they ever would bring that up?
No.
Or talk about it?
No.
That would never be mentioned.
I'm not aware of it being mentioned.
It's interesting.
But I do
because
think
I think there is something to it. What you're talking about, like there's definitely a part of it where it's like,
there's some
old
guys,
guy complains about it, but it's also
economics
right.
lesson here, boys. Here you need to know some things.
You're right.
Totally an individual thing. There's some that love the history, want to know more about it. Mm-hmm. Sit down with a guy that played in the league 10, 15 years ago and say, hey, share some stories with me. I love that. Others go, no. I mean, give me an Xbox.
It is.
Is that what it is?
Give me one of those Super Nintendos.
It is crazy though when you look at players coming into the league now. Like I think it's Easton Cowan who's like, I grew up watching Mitch Marner. It's like, what? That can't be right.
Happens fast.
He just came into the league. Yeah. Like that's
Bedard's like, I like shooting like Matthews. It's like, what?
Yeah, I looked up to Matthews growing up. It's like the rookie Matthews you mean? Like, I mean, it's crazy.
Would have helped if we had Instagram back then too.
Sure.
Or hurt. Are you sure he wanted camera phones?
Playing that Instagram hockey.
Well, in June '94, I'm sure he wouldn't want a camera phone, Skipper.
All right.
He had a car phone, the like wired car phone.
That was insane. That
was a wired car phone. Beep, boop, beep, on the highway.
Before the wired car phones, when I first got my license at 16, I kind of ripped the phone out of a phone booth.
Pardon? What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, I just went to like a phone booth and ripped out the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw your picture yesterday. You're a pretty strong guy.
And then I'd go to stop at red lights and look across, and if she was pretty, I'd hold the phone up.
You're a fake one.
I was a fake. I faked it up. And I would get the double look, and I'm like, yeah, I'm 16, and I got a phone in the car.
That's amazing. I love that.
That's one of the funniest things I've ever.
The driving crooner, a different version of the driving crooner. I actually took a picture. Am I going to
regret saying that story?
I love that story.
It's a fantastic
Is Bell
story.
Canada going to come back at me at like
maybe
30
Rogers.
years?
Honest to God.
No, there was no. It was
I took
telephone.
a picture of a phone booth today. I saw a phone today. Like I saw one. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a time machine, like an on the wall, put your quarters in. Which I used to use.
There was no more horrible feeling than
back when I used to tie an onion to my belt.
Well, no, it's like I'd go to the attack game with my buds, and I get my parents to pick me up. I'm like, I don't have a quarter.
Yeah,
like, I guess we're walking.
You collect call thing.
Well, yeah, we're like, come pick me up right now.
When you call tomorrow, say I'm not coming in because I got a new virus. I'm going to say you picked up a phone.
Oh, I didn't touch it, to be clear. I took a picture of it.
Oh, okay. All right,
we're
good.
Fine.
All right.
Winter Classic?
Kind of teed up a little bit. The Panthers and the Lightning to host outdoor games in Florida next season. And
why?
Well, because every team wants one.
Sweet.
It's house hockey. Everyone gets a shift.
Why don't you put it with, where it's cold with good teams? Like, can the Panthers not come to Toronto to play the Leafs?
God, that'd be cool.
Why not? Like, why does it got to be
sell some tickets?
You got to go play it in soup in Florida in January? Like, what are you doing?
So it's going to be indoors. It'd be like BC Place sort of thing, where it's a
have you ever been to one?
Indoors.
Yes.
Which one?
Been to two.
The Leafs here?
Went to the Leafs at...
He covered one.
I went to the Leafs at BMO.
Yes. Okay.
And then I went to the one in Hamilton against the Sabres where Matthews, slightly cross-checked a guy and got suspended for 2 games with no prior history.
They no matter how many we've had for 20 years now, they're fun.
They're fun.
That's
they're
what
fun when you're there. They're
every
fun
team,
for the people.
They're fantastic. They're black.
For the local market.
Every fan base wants one. Every team wants one. I get it. But I don't know. Do you have to put everyone on national TV and then cry when the ratings come? Because
the league's like, you guys just complained about us putting the Blackhawks on. What do you want from us?
Nationally, it loses its luster. You're not watching for something new.
Oh, the luster's lost.
Right? But locally,
locally
they're fine. Locally, they're fine.
locally they're fine. Yeah, it's still generates a lot of ticket sales and interest, and gives back to the
LA's
fans.
had one, right? LA's had one.
Oh, yeah, they have had one.
Dallas has had one.
Isn't there some noise at Columbus dying to get in on something? They ever got anything?
Vegas had one. Was it Vegas and Seattle last year?
This is how memorable they've been.
I think it was.
I went to
really
the Philly one, which was awesome.
Philly
in
versus
2011.
They've been in like 7, so.
I think it was Toronto, was it not?
No, they didn't play Toronto.
Philly,
Leafs have played in 3 outdoor ones. They played in a really weird Washington military base one.
Annapolis.
Where they were dressed like stormtroopers. Remember that game?
Naval Academy.
Yeah, Naval Academy. Correct.
I
That's what it
covered
was.
that one.
You covered it.
I did.
It was it was 5-1, 6-1 in that game. They got killed. Yeah, it's not good. Anyways, I don't know why you need to do this.
Because first of all, they make
grump.
a
Just
lot.
let Florida have one.
They made a lot of. They make a lot of money.
Listen, there was 10 people in the building until Florida started winning games last year. It's like
Well, they're winning games, though.
Yeah.
Outdoor games.
It's like 5 home games all at once.
Is the ice just going to
Like,
be pure
is there enough
Freon?
people?
Like, how are they going to keep it frozen?
I don't know.
Oh, one's in a dome.
Like in a
retractable,
fully indoor
I
over a
think-
track?
You know
we
this
got
with the football stadiums.
We got
One's a stadium.
they'll play at Lone Depot Park in Miami on I think that's the baseball field.
Okay.
Which has we used to have the
roof.
big sculpture in the outfield.
Lone Depot?
I think so.
Okay.
And then Raymond James Stadium in Tampa on February 1st, which doesn't have a roof. So,
Good luck.
I mean,
At least the climate's predictable.
what's it like? Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
10 games on tap tonight.
Wow.
any of them outdoors?
No.
Okay.
Buffalo and Ottawa. That's a big one.
That's big for Ottawa in particular.
But yeah, I mean, Buffalo still wants to make people believe that
I guess if Buffalo were
Right.
to rattle off 3 or 4 in a row, you're right back in the thick
Boston,
of things.
Tampa's. This is huge for the Bruins.
Yeah.
They got to find one here.
Okay.
It just feels like Tampa's inevitable there, but
And
yes, it is big.
This one's my favorite
Mm.
tonight. MSG. It's the New Jersey Devils versus Steve Valiquette.
The Instagram Bowl.
Now,
Valley.
can we just get out ahead of this and say Valley's comment about Instagram hockey is a very valid criticism?
Yeah.
Not of maybe of that player or that moment, but it
Hey,
is
listen,
a thing. Like
I
Adam
just-
Oates came on our show and was like, we got to get the Instagram hockey out of Zegers'
I'm
game.
telling you right now, 10 years from now, we're going to watch games and we're going to go, that was an Instagram game, and it's going to be Valley's credit.
I watched
Yeah.
the World Juniors, bud. There's a lot of Instagram hockey there.
And it's fun that there's more entertaining stuff that they're trying to do, but it kind of sucks that the best way to win in hockey is not to do cool stuff. It's just to chip it off the boards and go
Off
forward.
the glass and
Yeah.
hammer somebody and chop it in front of
Like
the
the
net.
best strategy is to go that way, quick and hard.
Speaking of Instagram, did you catch that one clip of it's The Sopranos, but they put Jack Hughes' face on?
I did.
And
did.
and Valley's face on?
Can we confirm or deny that
The
Valley has
cannoli
seen
scene?
this?
I don't know, but it made me chuckle.
Yeah.
Sopranos is best show. It's the most rewatchable show
Yes.
ever. It's so good.
I went back and did The Wire because I
Yeah.
had never seen The Wire
Yeah.
and felt like I had to.
Yeah.
I've never done The Sopranos. I've done
Really?
I did the first
I mean, you
season.
have a very busy life, so I don't
but
know when you're gonna
summertime. It's a summertime project
do
for
it.
me. Is I
You'll
need to
love
do
it.
yeah.
It's really, really good. Holds up. I go back and do it like once every couple of years. It's
Yeah.
the best. It's the best.
All right.
Rangers win this one? They got to
No.
show up for this one. This
Rempe's
one's
back
huge.
in. Now Rempe's back after 8 game suspension. He's back and he says he's gonna. I got to play a smarter game. He says more control. Bring that energy.
Is he confirmed to play tonight?
I don't know about that part.
Let's hope so.
Can't
the-
read this fast enough to get that answer.
You didn't even mention Colorado and Winnipeg tonight, and Edmonton in Pittsburgh. Sid
All right.
versus McDavid.
Well, see, if Rempe's playing, he's going to end up in
Pick
jail.
your game tonight, and we're doing it all over again tomorrow on the Real Kyper and Board Show. Our thanks to Aaron Ward in our first Leaf Hour edition of our show, and then Ray Ferraro, of course, on the national show. All right, boys, good job today. Pinehurst, number 2.
Oh, what a week. What a weekend, really.
Have a great night, everybody.